As one of the first and most popular mobile suits around, the original Gouf has a very rich Gunpla history, spanning all the way from the beginning of the franchise to the modern day. So today, we're having a look at all of the Gouf kits throughout history, brought to you by NordVPN, one of the most popular VPNs around. Not only does it slice through regional locks like the Gouf's heat sword, but it'll also give you extra protection while browsing the web. And by using the link down below or the code kkrt, you'll not just get a sweet discount, but you'll also be supporting the channel. This is no regular VPN, boy. This is NordVPN. And this is the third 1/144th scale Gunpla kit ever made, all the way back in November of 1980. So naturally, it's nothing to write home about by today's standards. The articulation is limited, it required glue, it's molded entirely in blue, and the proportions are, to put it nicely, retro. But in the context of the time, this was a perfectly serviceable kit for the price. The only real complaint was that it didn't include every accessory. It only came with a shield and a heat rod, so no heat sword. But this problem would be solved half a year later with the 1/144th scale Weapons for Mobile Suit set. This set came with the Beam Javelin, the Gundam Hammer, the Hyper Hammer, the Hyper Bazooka and 2 rockets, the Zaku Bazooka and 2 rockets, 2 leg-mounted missile pods with removable missiles, a Heat Hawk, 2 Cracker Grenades, and of course, the Gouf's Heat Sword, here listed as the Gouf Saber. But equipping your Gouf with the Heat Sword, or Gouf Saber, was less straightforward than you might think, especially for the modern day Gunpla builder. The old Gouf only came with one right hand, and it was permanently holding the heat rod, so you had to modify the hand yourself to make the heat sword fit. Then in July of 1981, the Gouf would be part of the first kit of a brand new line, the 1/250th scale dioramas. Instead of articulated kits that you could put in whatever pose you wanted, these were static kits meant to replicate a scene from the anime. It came with the Gouf wielding his heat rod, a Zaku wielding a Zaku bazooka, the gun tank, a base to put them on, and then even a backdrop to complete your little diorama. And for some reason, they also included 3 extra mobile suits that were about half the size of the 1/250th scale figures. There's a little gun tank, a little Gouf, but this time with his heat sword, and a little Char Zaku with a Zaku machine gun. I guess in case you wanted Char to be part of Ramba's attack on the white base. Cause who knows, maybe this diorama shows us just how Ramba Ral could have defeated the white base. But anyways, the one downside with this set is that, of course, it still needed a lot of paint, which was a problem that would be solved with our next kit that released in the same year in December, the 1/100th scale Gouf. The proportions did still look very retro, but the color separation was miles ahead. It was so good, in fact, that it was almost completely color accurate. You just needed some orange for the heat sword and the cockpit, some dark blue for the shield, and some gray for the heat rod, and voila! A perfectly presentable Gouf. Unfortunately then, despite being such a popular machine, the Gouf would not become a part of the 1/100th scale real type line, nor would it get a 1/60th scale kit. It would, however, become part of the 1/250th scale Iropla line. Despite their small size, these were highly advanced kits for their time because they were the first Gunpla ever to use Bandai's system injection molding technology. This allowed for multiple colors to be printed on a single runner, therefore allowing for kits with much better color separation. So despite its small size, the color accuracy was excellent. The proportions and articulation, though, weren't anything to write home about, and were actually worse than the 1/144th scale and 1/100th scale Gouf kits that we talked about earlier. So, while this kit was a technological marvel, it still left a lot to be desired. Also, unlike the 1/144th scale, which only came with a heat rod, this one only came with the heat sword. Probably because they figured that the orange of the blade would look more impressive than the grey heat rod. And in 1988, the Gouf would become part of yet another very interesting line, the full color model line. These weren't actually new model kits, but reissues of several of the very first 1/144th scale kits, but now with paint pre-applied to them. And because of this, they had something that almost no other Gunpla has. A big part of the Gunpla identity is that they're made in Japan, but these kits are made in China. Now, I'm assuming that the actual model kits were still made in Japan because, that's where the molds were, and that they were then shipped off to China for painting and packaging. But it's still an interesting bit of Gunpla history. Originally, they were packaged in a box with a clear window, no doubt to show off the painted parts inside, and then in 1989, they were reissued for Gundam's 10th anniversary with a different box. Our next Gouf then would once again be on the technological forefront, becoming the 9th kit in Bandai's then brand new high-grade Universal Century line. Released in April of 2000, this kit was by far the best Gouf ever released up until that point, and it still has one advantage over every other Gouf kit released since. It came with an MMP-78 Zaku machine gun. Because yes, believe it or not, despite being a famous close combat machine, the Gouf could, and would, use normal Zaku weaponry too. It's even seen using the Dom's giant bazooka. And yet, everyone seems to ignore this, Bandai included. But anyways, the original high grade also has a lot of other cool things going for it. It was the first standard Gouf kit that could store the heat sword inside of its shield, and it just looks plain badass. I loved this thing when I first got it, and I still love it today. There's just one downside. Due to the design of the skirt armor, with the energy pipes running over them, Bandai decided to make them completely solid. So they severely limit the movement of the legs. And this is of course a shame for a high mobility close combat machine. For me though, this was something I could overlook because of how awesome it was and still is. Plus, it would also become available as several special edition versions. First up, in September of 2000, there was the extra finish version, which really was the most straightforward of the bunch. For a slightly higher price, the Gouf's plastic was now coated in a shiny layer, making it feel a bit more luxurious. Other than that though, it was the exact same Gouf that we all know and love. Next up, in 2008, there was the Ecopla version. This kit was molded all in black because the plastic was actually made from recycled plastic. So if you look really closely, you can see that the black isn't a uniform black and that there are actually little shimmers of differently colored plastic in there. And it also came with a special marking sticker sheet that was included with all of the Ecopla kits released back then. And then in 2013, we got the Visch Donahue custom Gouf and Gelgoog round type set. And unfortunately, this was again just a straight up recolor with some added marking stickers. Meaning that it's not exactly the Visch Donahue custom. Instead of the machine gun finger hand, Visch Donahue took some inspiration from the Gouf custom and opted for a normal hand with an arm-mounted triple-barreled 35mm machine gun, the one that's installed on the Gouf custom. And unfortunately, the OG high-grade Universal Century Gouf was not compatible out of the box with the one included with the high-grade Universal Century Gouf custom. So Bandai couldn't just throw that one in there without some extra engineering on their part. But back to October of 2000 with the very first Master Grade Gouf. retroactively known as the Master Grade Gouf version 1.0. And as an early Master Grade, this was definitely a very interesting thing to build, because some parts made me feel like I was building a modern kit. Like, it has a fully featured inner frame, the heat sword has a beautiful vibrant orange, the normal hands are fixed pose, and just like the high grade, I absolutely love the menacing proportions, especially the head. But then some other things reminded me that I was building an older Master Grade. It required screws, you have to do some serious disassembling to move the mono eye, but this was the first Gouf to come with a movable mono eye, and the way that some parts went together were just a bit weird. Look at these elbow and knee joints, for example. Instead of having a support arm on both sides, there's just a single support arm on one side and then a screw on the other side. It looks fragile, it feels fragile, and it makes me afraid to move them around too much. Not that there's that much articulation once you put the armor on. Despite the inner frame itself being quite well articulated, as with the previous Goufs, the skirt armor is a serious limiting factor here. It is movable, but only slightly because of those energy pipes. And this kit would then form the basis for the Master Grade Gouf Custom in 2001. The inner frame would remain the same, and the armor parts were changed for the Gouf Custom styling. I can definitely see why people want a 2.0 of this thing now. But back to our Master Grade regular Gouf with some good things. I really like that this is the first Gouf ever to come with the possibility of building it as the Gearensgreed version of the MS-07A Gouf instead of the standard MS-07B Gouf. But you will need to buy 2 kits for this. So, the MS-07A Gouf is simply the MS-07B Gouf, but without the heat rod and without the finger machine guns. This kit comes with a standard left hand, and the lower arms are interchangeable. So if you buy a second Gouf, you can replace the heat rod equipped right arm with the standard left arm. It doesn't come with any handheld weapons other than the heat sword, but you can just borrow some from a Master Grade Zaku or a Master Grade Dom. And another first with this kit is that it's the first Gouf to come with an easily movable heat rod. Every segment is its own little part, through which a metal wire and a mesh pipe is threaded. The metal wire gives the heat rod its mobility, and the mesh pipe makes it look good. It is a pain in the ass to build, but it looks way better than I was expecting, and it also holds its pose way better than I was expecting. So credit where credit is due. And that's still not everything that this bad boy comes with. Like every Master Grade, we've got 2 pilot figures, one for inside the cockpit and one standing. We've got this piece of cardboard, which was a staple for older Master Grades, and a 1/20th scale figure of Hammond, which you can then pose together with the 1/20th scale Ramba roll figure that you get with the Master Grade Zaku 1. Plus, for the people who wanted to make their Gouf just that little bit extra impressive, they could buy the 11th set of the HY2M Master Grade light-up heads. These sets consisted of 3 Master Grade heads each, with light-up functionality in the eyes, or the eye, in case of Zeon's Monoai mobile suits. And in this 11th set, we got the Hyakushiki, the RX-78 Gundam Castfall Custom, and of course, the Gouf. And because they now had to incorporate an LED, something that the original wasn't built for, these were actually completely new heads with slightly different builds and proportions. For the Gouf, the energy pipes were now one single piece, and the mono-eye area was now made wider, probably to put more of an emphasis on the light-up mono-eye. And what's also cool is that they're turned on by a magnet. In April of 2005 then, you could build this Gouf again as the 1 Year War 0079 color version. This included almost all of the same things as the 2000 kit, but the colors were now duller to match those used in the 1 Year War PlayStation 2 game. They also looked closer to the official colors of the Gouf because the regular version was just way too dark. As for the accessories, it no longer comes with the cardboard or the 1/20th scale figure of Hammond. Looks like your princess is in another Gunpla box. Back in 2000 then, we got something completely different in November. The SD Gouf. It's pretty much just a blue brick with stickers, the arms are hollow, and the proportions are very Ramba. But it does come with both the heat rod and the heat sword, so that is something. And from this very unimpressive Gouf, we move on to the most impressive Gouf. Released in June of 2003, we got the 1/60th scale HY2M Glorious Gouf. And well, Glorious is definitely an apt name for this grade. At first glance, it might look like little more than an upscaled version of the Master Grade, both on the outside and on the inside, but it does have an extra feature that makes it truly glorious. Hidden inside of the chest is a giant battery compartment for 2 AAA batteries that powers the LEDs in the mono eye, the chest, the backpack thrusters, and the leg and feet thrusters. Plus, there's a CR1216 battery for the Gatling fingers, which even come with a blinking feature, to simulate them actually firing. It was an incredibly impressive kit back then, and I'm pretty sure that it's still an impressive kit today. Also, it came with a very clever innovation to give the front skirt armor more movement. Rather than having them jointed at the top, which is technically how they should be jointed, they're now cut in half. The top half is static, and the bottom half is jointed just below the energy pipes, allowing the legs to go much more forward. And this is then also how basically every modern Gouf kit has done it moving forward. But before we can talk about these more modern Goufs, we had a retro Gouf that was released in October of 2006 as part of the Gunpla Collection Volume 1. These were half-scaled kits of the old 144 scale kits, so 1/288 scale, and they were a bit give and take. You no longer had to glue them together, but their articulation was limited. And what remained the same was their color separation, or rather, their lack thereof. And what was also included in this collection was the Weapons for Mobile Suit set. But this time, the heat sword did have its own hand, so no need for extra work yourself. In short, these kits were cool trips to the early 80s with modern Gunpla creature comforts. And they also really made me appreciate modern day Gunpla, like the Master Grade Gouf version 2.0, released in May of 2009. A model kit that improved upon the old Gouf Master Grade in just about every regard. It had better accessories, better color accuracy, much better articulation, in part thanks to those aforementioned skirt armor improvements, and a much better inner frame. Although perhaps this is something that we shouldn't dwell on for too long, because in the anime, they made it very clear that the Gouf was not a Zaku. It was completely different. The Master Grade 2.0 though reuses quite a bit of the Master Grade Zaku 2 version 2.0's inner frame. Proportion-wise then, I find it funny that despite being one of the most technologically advanced Gouf kits out there, it has some of the most retro proportions out there, especially with that giant trunk. Moving on to the accessories then, we once again get the ability to build this thing as the Giren's Greed version of the MS-07A. But this time, we don't have to buy a second kit, because not only do we get a regular left hand, but we also get the choice per arm to either use a cover piece or a heat rod piece. So you can choose to make the MS-07A with no heat rod, the MS-07B with 1 heat rod, or your own variant with 2 heat rods. Just keep in mind that only 1 deployed heat rod is actually included. but it is a really cool one. Inspired by the design of the heat rod and the energy pipes of the HY2M Glorious Gouf, every segment has its own ball joint, making it extremely articulated and extremely good looking. It's just a shame that it doesn't like staying up quite as well as the heat rod from the Master Grade 1.0. And what's also unfortunate is that, as with so many other Gouf kits, no other weapons are included. But you can of course easily use weapons from the Master Grade 2.0 Zaku 2s, because you know, on the inside, it is a Zaku. One thing I almost forgot to mention then is the gear system for the Mono-Eye. The Mono-Eye now rotates as you turn the head, something it also got from the Master Grade 2.0 Zaku 2s. So yeah, if you're digging the proportions, there is no doubt that this is one of the best Goufs you can get at the moment. And it wouldn't take too long for this version to get some variants as well. Only a few months later, a version with some clear parts would be released to celebrate Gundam's 30th anniversary. In 2010, it would get a clear color version. In 2015, there was a Makuve version featuring fancier colors, fancy stickers, a Pickelhaube-inspired head, and a fancier shield. And then in 2017, we got the MS-07A Prototype Gouf, a parts variant of the standard Gouf with a different head, a different backpack, a different torso, different legs, and most importantly, different accessories. In addition to the Gouf's standard shield and heat sword, it also came with standard Zaku weaponry, being the Zaku machine gun, the Zaku bazooka, and a heat hawk, making this prototype version one of the best equipped Goufs out there. Also, in February of 2025, Bandai supposedly released a new, clear-colored Master Grade Gouf version 2.0, but this just seems like a re-release of the 2010 kit, but with a more expensive price tag. And after an upgraded Master Grade, the High Grade would be next in line for an upgrade, thanks to the High Grade Gouf R35 from Gundam Build Fighters, released in June of 2014. In the anime, this was a customized Gouf built by Mr. Rawl, who was 35 at the time, hence the model number. This Gouf had extra thrusters, 2 arm-mounted Vulcan pots, which are shaped like the original Gouf's finger machine guns, 2 shields, and 2 heat swords. Basically, it was a high-mobility Gouf with almost double the weapons. The only thing that wasn't doubled was the heat rod, which is like, while you're at it, why not double that as well? But anyways, that's how it went in the anime. In real life, the Gouf R35 was a completely new mold that took absolutely nothing from the then 14-year-old high-grade original Gouf. I would love to say that this was an obvious choice, but I've seen Bandai do worse, so when I saw that the R35 was a completely new mold, I was very happy, and I was also very happy to see that it took the front skirt lessons learned from the Master Grade 2.0 and the Glorious, making this thing not just quite the looker, but superbly articulated as well. And we got another great choice for the Mono-Eye. Rather than having to take the entire head apart, we simply got a little tap on the underside that you could move the Mono-Eye with. And another thing that was different was the heat rod. Rather than 2 solid heat rods, it came with a single straight one that could be bent in whatever pose you wanted it to be in. And then in April of 2016, it would form the basis for a brand new Gouf High Grade, the High Grade Gouf Revive version. Basically, this kit took all of the good things from the R35 and added in the parts necessary to turn it into a standard Gouf, plus some extras. Like, we don't just get a normal finger machine gun hand, but we also get a finger machine gun hand for holding on to the heat sword, which is something that it could do in the anime. And on top of that, we also got some cool leftover parts. For starters, it is possible to turn it into the Girin's Greed version of the MS-07A. We also got a second heat sword, And as cherry on top, we can choose between the new, more retro-looking head or the leftover head from the R35, which is more lean and mean looking. And I absolutely love that we got the choice here. And it wouldn't take Bandai long to make a few recolors of this kit. Already in June of the same year, we got the Gouf 21st Century Real Type colors. It might not have gotten a Real Type back when Bandai was first doing Real Types, but now over 30 years later, it finally got one. Its green and tan color scheme makes it fit in perfectly with the rest, and it also got a set of waterside decals for those realistic markings. Plus, it also includes markings for the separately sold 1/144 scale Donahue YS that you can put it on. And finally, in the winter of 2016, we got a clear color version, which then wraps up all of the kits we got of the standard Gouf from the original Gundam series. At least the ones that have been released so far, because I'm sure a lot of you are as annoyed as I am that in 2012, Bandai showed off concept art of a possible real grade Gouf and then never did anything with it. And the same thing happened with the Vanilla Gym and the Gundam ground type. And this is truly where the Gouf Gunpla history ends for now. It's definitely been interesting to see how they tackled things like the skirt armor and the heat rod over the years, and how they continue to evolve them. So yeah, what could be next for the Gouf? Based on one of the scenes from G-Quack's final episode, my money is on a Char custom of the high-grade Revive version, because I just can't see Bandai being able to resist that. It will be a premium Bandai limited kit of course, but I think that one is the most likely to actually happen. The Gundam though is telling me that it wants an HY2M glorious Char custom Gouf. Other than that, I wouldn't say no to that real grade that we were promised, or a modern take on the Gouf Heavy Arms type, or the non-08 MS Team Gouf Fly type, which would then be a good release to celebrate with a Gunpla history video on the Gouf Fly type and the Gouf Custom. But let me know down below what you want to see in the future from Gouf model kits, whether it's realistic or not. And if you want to learn more about the kits that I talked about in this video, I would highly recommend you to check out dalong.net. It was a great source of information for the kits that I don't have yet, like the HY2M Glorious Gouf. Maybe one day. In the meantime, don't forget to check out NordVPN with the link down below, or the code kkrt. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.